Hey y'all, Lisa Neller here, your thinking partner for life's greatest challenges. And just a recap of what I'm up to here, I am sharing some excerpts from Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience by Brene Brown. She is a social worker and a researcher, and she's written several books, probably 6 or 7 books now. And this one is about emotional language. I would even call it emotional intelligence. I did the introduction, I've done a couple of chapters, and the reason I'm doing this series is because number one, I want to get to know the book better myself. Like, I want to learn more about our emotions and how to regulate them for myself, how to understand them better. I would like to help you do the same thing. And then I'm preparing for my Love Mastery workshop, which is February 13th, and it's free and it will be recorded, and I'm going to put the link below the video. So I want to kind of lead up to that and talk about emotions that I think are relative to relationships. And of course, they all are, but there are some that just pop out to me more than others. In this chapter, so today's day 4, and then I'm covering chapter 3 today. And today's chapter is places we go when things don't go as planned. And the emotions that Brene explores in this chapter are boredom, disappointment, expectations, regret, discouragement, resignation, and frustration. I'm going to cover disappointment and expectations today. I only do a couple for each chapter because there's just so much to find in this book to read. So I encourage you to get the book. Like, go to Amazon, order the book, and that way you can follow along. You'll get a ton more information out of it. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with disappointment, which is on page 43 of the book. And the definition of disappointment in Brene's book is unmet expectations. Disappointment is unmet expectations. The more significant the expectations, the more significant the disappointment. And she found 2 different types of expectations. One is unexamined and unexpressed. So these are expectations that are, fairly subconscious, and we're not aware of them on a more conscious level. And then the other one is where we do express our expectations. We consciously share them, express them, and then if those expectations aren't met, it's also a very deep disappointment. So I'm going to read some more on page 43. This is regarding unexamined and unexpressed expectations. She calls them stealth expectations. Every day, sometimes every hour, we are consciously and unconsciously setting expectations of ourselves and the people in our lives, especially those closest to us. The unconscious, unexamined, and unexpressed expectations are the most dangerous and often turn into disappointment. In fact, the research tells us that disappointment is one of the most frequently experienced emotions, and it tends to be experienced at a high level of intensity. When we develop expectations, we paint a picture in our head of how things are going to be and how they're going to look. Sometimes we go so far as to imagine how they're going to feel, taste, and smell. That picture we paint in our minds holds great value for us. We set expectations based not only how we fit in that picture, but also on what those around us are doing in that picture. This means that our expectations are often set on outcomes totally beyond our control, like what other people think, what they feel, or how they're going to react. The movie in our mind is wonderful, but no one else knows their parts, their lines, or what it means to us. When the picture or movie fails to play out in real life, we feel disappointed. And sometimes that disappointment is severe and brings shame and hurt and anger with it. It's a setup for us and the people involved. Disappointment takes a toll on us and our relationships. It requires considerable emotional bandwidth. Research Researcher Eliane Summerfield explains that we come away from the experience of disappointment feeling bad about ourselves and the other person. Our negativity is tinged with astonishment and surprise, and at the same time, we're trying to forgive, we're concealing emotions. We're trying to think positively and urging ourselves to move on, and it's exhausting. Okay. So, Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School, she's the owner of the Life Coach School, talks about having a manual. We all have a manual for how other people, for ourselves, and also how other people should think, behave, and how things should turn out. This is the way things should be. You should be this, you should be this, you should be this, I expect this, I expect this, I expect this. She calls it the manual. You could call it a rule book or whatever you want to call it. But most of us have one. Most of us have an idea, a set of standards of the way we think the way the world should work and the way people should work. And often we find out that just isn't the case. It is the case that we have the manual, but it's not the case that people are going to follow that manual. The reality is everyone has their own manual. Everyone has their own idea of what is reasonable and true for them. And when we understand that we have our own manual, that we have our own rule book, we can begin to see that maybe that's not realistic in the context of relationship. So this plays out in marriage all the time. This is one of the reasons that the divorce rate is so high, is because we go into the marriage thinking this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be all, roses and romance and, we're just going to have all the sex in the world and I'm going to have 5 kids. Whatever the thing is that you think it's going to be, it's usually not that. I can guarantee you, when you get into marriage, you're going to find out that it can be wonderful, but also it's not perfect. There's challenges. You got 2 individual people that come with all their stuff, right? All their psyche, their background, their history, their trauma, their all the things. And they come in together, for the rest of their lives, they're going to live, happily ever after. And, part of that is having the manual and having the expectations. So we get disappointed. We not only get disappointed, but then all these other emotions enter into the picture as well. Anger, resentment, all these other things. So that's why I brought this one up, because it's such a big thing. There's also the expected, let's see, what does she call it? The examined and expressed expectations. So this is different. This is like, I'll give you an example, and it's kind of like what she talks about in the book, an example. But like, imagine that a friend of yours says, there's a promotion at work, and I'm going for it. And I've heard through the grapevine that I'm going to get it. I'm so excited. I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to up-level my resume. I'm going to talk to the right people, whatever. And the expectation is this person's going to get the promotion. And then, lo and behold, for whatever reason, the person doesn't get the promotion. Now, there's extreme disappointment and embarrassment and shame and all these other things that go along with that. And that's just one example, but that's an example where someone really puts it out there. I have this expectation. And so that's the difference between the stealth expectation and the more examined and expressed expectation. And they're both hurtful. The disappointment is hurtful either way. So it's just good to know. This is good to know this stuff so that, what we can do, and Brene says this in the book, is we can decide to lower our expectations. I think that's a really good idea. Like, if you lower your expectations, or at least be honest about your expectations and understand that not everything's going to pan out the way that you think it is. So that is one way to minimize our disappointments, is to lower the expectations. That does not mean that you stop working towards your goals, or that it's just because you have disappointment. Like, let's say you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, or you're trying to rise, have a very successful business, and you find challenges and disappointments along the way. That doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you give up. It just means it's iterative. It's learning experience. You keep trying new things until whatever works. So anyway, food for thought. I am doing a workshop. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, the Love Mastery Workshop, Elevate Your Relationship Game, February 13th. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It will be on my pages. And I thank you for watching.